Hello everybody, Marty McConnell, the Off-Grid Gecko here, and I am wanting to start a new little subsection of my channel. I'm probably going to title it Preparedness, and I feel like I have something to contribute along these regards. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about firearms, we're going to be talking about emergency communications, ham radio, FRS, CB, that kind of stuff, and old dead cell phones. We're going to be talking about first aid supplies, a daily kit to keep with you, knives, all that fun stuff. But I want to start by prefacing this video, or prefacing this series. So I decided I want to start this off by qualifying things, and I'm going to basically break everything down into 3 levels, okay? So you're going to have like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, level 1, level 2. I might call them different things on different days. Don't worry, the gun's not loaded. He's not going to hurt himself. I got the bullets right here. You can't use them. So you may hear me call these different things, but it's basically going to be 1, 2, and 3. So with that said, let's just get started and we'll kind of qualify what I mean by these different levels. So our entire society right now, and I think most third world societies, are increasingly dependent on transportation grids, food networks, and this comes from the idea of globalization. So globalization started happening really around World War II, and then all of a sudden, immediately after World War II is over, then you get the space race kicks into gear. Everybody's chasing after nuclear weapons. We've got refrigerators and air conditioners that we never had before. Washing machines show up on the market. Supermarkets start popping up everywhere. And all of a sudden, instead of going down to the local dairy farm to get a quart of milk, or better, having the dairy farm send out deliveries of milk to everybody, you basically get into this situation where everything you need is shipped by truck from the farms to some warehouse, to some FDA or USDA processing, stamping, and approval plant, and then back to the grocery market. So the only way you can get your stuff is basically to go to the grocery store and pay for 10 people putting their hands on it before it ever gets to you. And your phone number, emergency calls only, please. Where was I? So all this stuff's tied together. It's like a big grid. And the whole thing with off-grid is getting away from that grid, at least cutting the power line coming in. You don't see a power line coming into my house from behind me. You won't see one coming in from any side of my house. Like, there's no power up here, there's no city water. These are services we depend on. So level 1 is your basic interruption in regular service, from immediate medical care to maybe a short power outage that lasts all night, or your air conditioner goes on the fritz, or the refrigerator goes down, there's a leak in the roof. These are interruptions in your life. These are personal interruptions. So you can think of level 1 as being personal. This is centric. This is like the gods just looked down on you and said, ha ha, you're gonna have a bad day. Flat tires, just any kind of stuff like that, your basic level emergency stuff. And that's the stuff I really like to focus on when it comes to preparedness, because that applies to everybody. It applies to financial problems. All this stuff is part of emergency preparedness planning. Category 2 is an actual interruption in service, and that could be anywhere. It's usually 3 to 7 days. This is usually some kind of major disaster, or at least it infects more than you. In other words, it infects an entire community. It affects an entire community at one time, and or an entire state, or an entire region, or even an entire country. So I base this on 2 things. Number 1, the severity of whatever part of the grid has failed. And number 2, the time duration. Like I said, 7 to 10 days. And these are just ballpark figures. So you could have something that's less intrusive, that lasts a really long time. You could have something really, really insane going on that has a pretty short time interval and a fast follow-up, but it causes a major disruption in the flow of ordinary life. And category 3 would be everything from there up. So everything from, say, a Katrina hurricane type event all the way up to the end of the world as we know it. The stuff that all the survival prepper guys love to talk about so much. Now the funny thing is, when people talk about preparedness, they seem to focus on those category 3 things, giving very, very little consideration for the category 1 and category 2 stuff. And I know at least one question that's going to pop up, because it's 2020 and everybody's got this on the mind, is where would I classify COVID-19? Would I put that as a category 3? And my answer will be no. Yes, it's longer than 3 to 7 days, but the interruption in service is, compared to what I would call a category 3 event, it's all on a superficial level, you know. So bread runs out this week, toilet paper runs out next week, bread's back on the shelf, toilet paper comes back on the shelf, and then all of a sudden toothbrushes are missing. Like, it's just these spurious interruptions, and they're local interruptions. I mean, the trucks are still running. Most of the manufacturers that are producing the things that we need to carry on daily life are still up and running. They're still manufacturing things. The warehouses are chock full. The supply chain is still in operation. The power grid's still in operation. Clean water still in operation. This is not the end of the world. This is a prolonged irritation more than a real disturbance. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree with me on that. I know a lot of people are hurting right now. People have lost jobs. They don't have any money, and I realize this. I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of the event, but what I am saying is I would class that in with the category 2 stuff, which can be just as severe and serious on a smaller scale. You know, if your local power transformer goes out and you've got a week without power to an entire community or an entire county, or maybe even a large chunk of a state, that would, those people would be suffering a lot harder. They're just suffering for a shorter duration. So that's the basic categories that I'm going to be talking about. So I'm mainly going to be focused on 1 and 2, right? Because a Carrington event, and I'll give my thoughts and opinions on this in future videos, but something the magnitude, a high magnitude category 3 shit hit the fan emergency, we're all pretty much screwed, and it doesn't matter how much prepared training you've given, or how well you can hunt or fish, or what you think your ability to survive is, and the zombies start knocking down your door, you know, you're gonna run out of bullets sooner or later. So I'm gonna push those kind of off to the side. We'll discuss those on like a philosophical level and a realistic breakdown of what could happen, what does happen, that kind of thing. And we're going to mainly focus on categories 1 and 2 throughout this series, because those are immediate, they're always there, they're effervescent. I mean, people are going to have car accidents, flat tires, lightning hit their house, lightning hit their kid's sister, you know, a tree falling on your garage, power going out, water going out, which happens way too frequently these days, cell phone towers going down. These are all category 2 things that can, when they're extended, I mean, if it's a 5-minute interruption, that's one thing. If it's a thunderstorm breaking up your internet connection, that's one thing. But if something's seriously shut down for a period of a week, that just causes mass havoc in our lives. And a week is really not that long in the grand scheme of things, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be prepared for that kind of an event. Altogether, financially, mentally, physically fit enough to handle it, and able to spot it ahead of time, and then also just having the stuff on hand that you need to get you through the week without having to worry about, I gotta run down to the supermarket and buy some stuff, but the power's out in the entire community for the last 3 days, so where am I gonna get my stuff? Am I gonna go out and loot for it, or am I gonna, you know, open up this supply of dry goods that I got and just eat off of that for a while until, you know, the situation blows over? Those will be my 3 categories. So if you hear me refer to category 1, 2, and 3, like, that's what I'm talking about, and I'll probably give a little recap because I can't shut myself up. And I think that'll about wrap it up. So stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff, and we're going to be talking about a lot of cool tips.